This week on WestfordCAT News, the town is one step closer to assembling a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. Senator Edward Markey won the Democratic primary race and will compete for a second term on November 3rd. This week's featured member of the class of 2020 is Caroline Burke, and Patty Stocker speaks with a local artist.
And my photographs of small wooden boats, on which the book is based, was a 10-year project that started in 1999.
I'm Joyce Polino Crane. WestfordCAT News is next. During the August 31st school committee meeting, members voted unanimously to accept a proposed charter on the beginning framework for a town committee on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The working group who created it was headed by Select Board members Tom Clay and Anita Tonarkin-Wen, who were both in attendance for the vote. Select Board members are now seeking applicants for the 9-member committee. Here's Clay with the criteria.
Explicitly, you can be a student. You don't have to be of voting age. And we have a couple applicants so far, which is really exciting. We're Westford Academy students. And also, you don't have to be a citizen. So you can be, anybody who's here as a resident in town can join. And if there are more questions than that about eligibility, happy to answer them. But it'd be especially valuable to have people who have that perspective, I think, of being newcomers. I think the idea of having a look at what diversity looks like today, what's the data? And then, are there, what's our goal as a town? Do we want students to come to school and see the future that they're going to see in the world? Just like, do we want people to see that in all the town services? So that could be a discussion and a recommendation that comes forward. And I think it's an interesting discussion to have, but I think I know it's a little bit uncomfortable for me and for a lot of people, but we're trying to leave it very open for them to tell us where the areas of greatest need are and make sure that we're listening carefully to the committee.
To read the charter or access an application, visit westfordma.gov. To see the entire meeting of the joint boards, visit westfordcat.org. Voters trickled into precincts 1 and 3 on September 1st at midday to vote for a slate of mostly unopposed candidates in the Democratic primary election. By noon, 522 ballots had been cast in Precinct 1 and 637 in Precinct 3. On the ballot was Senator Ed Markey defending his 6-year term and challenger U.S. Representative of the 4th District, Joseph P. Kennedy, a position he has held since 2013. It was a race between a senior politician from Malden and a younger challenger living in Newton, who is a member of the revered Kennedy family. When all ballots were counted, Markey 74 had won approximately 753,000 votes to Kennedy's approximate 605,000. In Westford, Markey got 3,330 votes to Kennedy's 2,128 votes. Candidates who ran unopposed for 2-year terms included Congresswoman Lori Trahan, State Representative James Arcero, both of Westford, and State Senator Edward J. Kennedy of Lowell, no relation to Joseph Kennedy. WestfordCAT has been spotlighting half a dozen members from the Westford Academy class of 2020. This week, we feature Caroline Burke, who is taking a gap year and hopes to become a professional actress. Due to COVID-19, Burke and her classmates were unable to play spring sports, attend prom, or take a traditional class trip to Disney World in Orlando.
So originally I was planning on living in New York with my sister and maybe my mom. in New York City, and I was planning on like trying to get started in like my work that I want to do in film, like as an actor, but also one day hopefully to be a producer or director as well. And that's what I'm going to school for, because I'll be applying to schools in the fall. So I figured I would get a head start and take a gap year.
This interview and the other 5 were conducted by WestfordCAT intern Caroline Crimmins, a sophomore at Endicott College and a Westford Academy alumnus. Visit westfordcat.org for more information on these representatives of the class of 2020. I'm Joyce Polino Crane, and you're watching WestfordCAT News.
Hi, Patty Stalker here from WestfordCAT. We're starting a new series at the station, which will focus on regional artists that are scheduled to display their work at the Parish Center for the Arts Artist of the Month exhibitions. I recently spoke with Nancy Rich, a seasoned and talented photographer from Natick, Massachusetts, who has exhibited extensively throughout New England. In 2016, Nancy retired from a long career as a school administrator, but did have a 208-page book published of her photographs of small wooden boats. I asked her why she decided to focus on the iconic dinghies.
I just think they're gorgeous. I think they're emblematic of New England. They've got so much character. The sad thing is it's very hard to find them now. They've been replaced by boats made of fiberglass and rubber and aluminum. And I understand that. Wooden boats are hard to maintain. They're expensive. They're heavy. But they're just so beautiful. And it's almost the more worn they are, the more attractive they are to me. They've got character. They really are, a beautiful piece of craftsmanship. So when I first started filming them, I did that. I started actually when I was taking a photography class up in Maine. And Rockport, Maine has a well-known photography school called the Maine Photographic Workshops. The name has changed at this point, but that's what it was back then. And there were lots of wooden dinghies then. So I found them pretty easily, and then it became harder and harder to find them. And my understanding is my book is the only such book that represents wooden dinghies. It's an historical record of them, and I'm proud of that.
You have an exhibit called Afloat. And Nor'easter Dinghies is part of that exhibit.
Right. So there are 3 different parts of the exhibit. One is the dinghies, another is called sea sculptures, and those are macro images of objects that have washed up from the beach. So macro means they're up close, very detailed, and like the dinghies, I find those to be very attractive. Anything that comes from the ocean has been polished. It's handled all these waves and being brushed up against rocks and sand. So it forms beautiful shapes, and it's a piece of artwork. That's how I view it. And then the third collection in Afloat is called Glass, Liquid, and Icecapades. So it's objects floating in water or some kind of liquid or frozen in ice. And they're mostly abstract images, but I think they really capture the eye and the imagination.
Nancy Rich is also a member of the Clever Hand Gallery, an artist collaborative in Wellesley. Due to the COVID-19 shutdown, the PCA has held off the Artist of the Month exhibitions, which usually begin in September. Check in with WestfordCAT or the Parish Center for the Arts to stay informed on Nancy Rich's upcoming exhibit. In the meantime, you can find her work at nancyrichphotography.com. You can also find her on Instagram. I'm Patty Stalker, and you're watching WestfordCAT News.